Hey guys, you got Doc here sitting on my front porch again, just hanging out. Gonna talk to you momentarily about a comic book, but just right now, I'm just enjoying life. I'm enjoying getting to kick back for a little bit on this front porch after working a unit today and taking care of patients. So it's nice to come out here and have this kind of, happy place. Not to be cliched or anything like that. But what I wanted to talk to y'all about today is not a Chevy Silverado with a trailer behind it, but instead it's Spider-Man Chapter 1, written, penciled, and inked, I believe, by John Byrne. And the thing I wanted to talk to you about, get my keys out of my pocket. The thing that I was going to talk to you about today about this book is how it changed Spider-Man. And maybe not for the better. When I was a kid and I was reading this would have been 1998, I believe, so it would have been 17. When I was reading this, I got excited, as did a lot of people, because they said, sweet, John Byrne, the man who reinvented Superman for the modern day, is going to reinvent Spider-Man for the modern day. Even though a lot of people said that Spidey really didn't need any kind of reinvention, then it became a situation where maybe a retelling was necessary. But the thing about it is, Spider-Man was not as old as Superman was when John Byrne did his reinvention. Superman at that point had been around almost 50 years as a character when John Byrne put him back together. Peter Parker had only been a character at this point for about 35 years. And you're thinking, oh, well, that's not too big of a difference. Even if a person takes care of themselves very well and eats well and maintains a good, healthy environment and a good, healthy regimen in their life, there is a big difference between a 35-year-old man and a 50-year-old man. There can be a big difference between a 35-year-old man and a 36-year-old man. So, Peter Parker got the reinvention that John Byrne thought that he needed. He got a new apartment. He and MJ moved into that apartment, New York brownstone. Aunt May got a haircut. She became more hip. Chapter 1, in and of itself, really retold the first year, a little bit more of Spider-Man and his rogues gallery and the birth of Spider-Man instead of the birth of Peter Parker. And there's nothing terribly wrong with that, except why was it necessary to update Peter when it wasn't necessary to update the Fantastic Four? It wasn't necessary to update the Inhumans, which is going to be a sticky point for this because Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee did an Inhuman series in 2000 that somewhat updated them. But at this point in time, there's a lot of other characters that are about the same age as Peter or maybe 1 or 2 years older. They didn't need reinventions. They didn't need to go back to basics because the basics had been working for 35 years. So it's the same argument that I always give when you see people argue that if Peter were to marry Mary Jane again, that it would age him and that he would no longer be a relevant character to those 20-somethings that haven't gotten married. He would lose out on the kid-friendly aspect of who he was. That's not true. That's not true. Any more so than Aunt May needing a new haircut and us going back to the basics in the new volume of Amazing Spider-Man from Howard Mackie as writer and John Byrne as artist for the first roughly 18 issues. I think he took off for issue 16 and then came back for 17 and 18 and then was gone. But why did Spider-Man need this reinvention to begin with? Now that I'm looking at it through the eyes of a 43-year-old man instead of the eyes of a 17-year-old young man, the excitement has somewhat waned. Because Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, just like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby on a lot of properties, Stan Lee and Don Heck, Stan Lee and Sal Buscema, John Buscema, they told it right the first time. They didn't need to go back and rebuild something that was built earthquake-proof the first go-around. And what really, really upset me, even at the time, was Howard Mackie had been writing Peter Parker Spider-Man with Romita Jr. on artwork for probably 3 years at that point. Okay? And if you'll pardon the phrase, the turn of phrase, apparently Mackie blew his load at the end of that run of Peter Parker Spider-Man. Because within, 2 years, Mackie is out. And I get that sometimes you're just done telling a story with a character. You've said everything that you have to say about that character to that character. But at the end of the day, you don't reboot a character and in a year and a half, 2 years later, step off and be like, all right, I'm done. See you later. And I really have to think that was probably the reason behind Howard not getting any more high-profile gigs at Marvel after that, to the same level of Spider-Man, was that he left Peter in a worse place than he found him. And the one thing that I always hear writers say is that you break your toys, but at the end of the day, you put your toys back together with the last issue or two of your run so that those characters are just as healthy and natural and happy as when you first found them. So I've only got chapter 1 and issues 1 through 4 out of what was a 12-issue run. And the collector in me says that I should go back and finish collecting 5 through 12. But the other part of me, the grown-up part of me, we'll call it, says why? Why do I need to go back and reread these stories that I have an omnibus, one of the few omnibus books that I have, that tells the first 38 issues of Amazing Spider-Man to pinpoint perfection? Why do I need to go back and read something that is not... It didn't stand the test of time at that time. It was very much a letdown, more so than even a reinvention of what had come before. It started off with a lot of steam. People were excited. And then by the time issue 5 or 6 came out, I don't remember Wizard pushing it nearly as hard as they had been pushing it with issue 1. I don't remember there being as much online chatter for that time, for Comic-Con.com boards, as there had been at that time, about that being a successful reboot or reinvention or retelling. I don't remember it holding the excitement factor for as long as Man of Steel and Superman's, new reboot run had. So, you guys hit me up and let me know what you think. Was Spider-Man Chapter 1, was it a success? Was it a failure? Was it somewhere in between? Have you never read it before? If you haven't read it, go at least pick up the first issue and then come back and hit me up and tell me what you think. Because this is just my opinion. This is simply my opinion. And you may read it and you may think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. But for me, as I've aged, it just seems like it's a reinvention of something that was already perfect and didn't need to be touched. So, thanks for checking out the video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments if you've read this, what your thoughts were on it, and did we really need Spider-Man Chapter 1 by John Byrne?